Here we start talking about the third chapter, Interdependence and the gains from trade. Now, let's begin with this picture. Okay, I would recommend you to pause the video and think about, what you see on the picture, like where these things are made. Okay, you would probably find that here the cell phone he's using very likely to be produced in China, right? And the credit card somewhere in his pocket, he used to pay the cup of coffee. If he's he needs to talk to someone at the credit card company. That customer representative probably gonna live in India, right? And the cup of coffee, the coffee beans are very likely to be imported from Brazil, Kenya, Vietnam. Okay, the dress shirt is very likely to be produced in Peru or Bangladesh. Okay, the hair gel is probably gonna produced in Cleveland, Ohio. Okay, so again, it's a very simple picture. It's a pretty normal morning, and you would find that our daily life actually relying upon the globalization or global trade. Okay, so in the past few decades, we already got used to this lifestyle, which again depends upon other countries, or we could say, we rely upon each other, okay, heavily. But this wave of globalization seems to be challenged, okay, or even some people would say, came to an end in 2016 during our presidential election. Okay, President Trump, okay, or I should say Donald Trump, because back then he was not elected yet, on his campaign trail said something like this: "We can't continue to allow China to rape our country, and that's what they are doing. It's greatest theft in the history of the world." He's actually not, specifically speaking about China, because he also mentioned Japan, South Korea, Vietnam, and some other countries. Okay, so he said that once he became the president, he will promote Made in USA. Okay, and he spent a lot of time talking about the United States economic independence instead of interdependence. Okay, so he believed that we should move the manufacturer factories back to the United States and produced here, so that we can create more jobs. We can make America great again. Okay. A little ironically, people find that his campaign hat that "Make America Great Again" was actually made in China. Okay, so again, Donald Trump in many ways are fundamentally different from the traditional Republican candidates, and among these differences, the attitude towards free trade or global trade is probably the most important one. Okay? traditional Republican candidate would perform or promote free trade. Okay, would say that we should trade more with the rest of the world. Okay, we should remove the trade barriers like quotas and tariffs. Okay, in contrast, the Democratic candidate like Hillary Clinton would support the trade protectionism because the labor union is the major supporter of the Democratic Party. Okay, so they would say that the manufacturers should stay in the United States, producing and creating more jobs. Okay, but in 2016, both candidates, okay, from Democrats and Republicans, are supporting the trade protectionism. Okay, so that's a big difference. That's why some people said that this is a big challenge to the wave of globalization. Okay, in the past few decades. Now, in this chapter, we're gonna dig deep to say if the United States really get hurt from global trade. Okay? If yes, how so? If no, why we believe we get hurt, or at least some of us believe we get hurt. Okay? And how we get hurt. How could we fix that problem? Or should we really go towards economic independence? So this is what we're going to discuss in this chapter. Okay. Now, as we already mentioned, why people and nations choose to be interdependent. So again, as the first picture of that handsome guy, sitting there and holding a cup of coffee. What we're talking about is the daily lifestyle. So that's really, the individual's choices. Okay, like they choose to be interdependent. So that's about people. But when we talk about, the previous presidential election and what is happening right now, or what has been happening in the past 3 years since President Trump was elected, then that's about the nations. Okay, and we will also talk about how do we trade with each other, because once we know the trade pattern, like how we trade with each other, we would have a better understanding of why we want to trade. Okay, so here I give you two quick examples. Okay, to stimulating any kind of deep thinking about the trade. Okay, now here in this table we get two countries, A and B. Okay, they both producing. Suppose they both produce two goods, iPads and pencils. Okay, and we find that country A can produce each iPad within 60 minutes. Okay. Country B would spend 20 minutes producing one iPad. Excuse me. And country A spends 15 minutes producing each pencil, whereas country B spends 18 minutes. Okay. Now, do you believe these two countries should trade with each other? Again, I would suggest you to pause the video and think about it. I would guess that many of you would say that yes, they should trade with each other. Okay? Why? Here, let's look at these numbers. If we just look at the iPad production, you would find that country B is more productive or more efficient, right? Because it spends only 20 minutes producing each iPad, whereas country A spends 60 minutes. All right, so country B is more efficient in terms of producing iPads. Okay, however, using the same way to look at the pencils production, you would find country A is more efficient or productive in pencils, right? It spends only 15 minutes producing each pencil, and country B would spend 3 more minutes. Okay, so because A is better at pencil production and B is better at iPad production, of course it's pretty natural for us to say that they should trade with each other, and we believe intuitively they could benefit from this trade, right? A real world example among you guys could be like, you get a term project, okay, in your business class, and you believe you're pretty good at writing, okay, and your teammate is pretty good at statistics. So you would find that, if the two of you form a group, okay, and your teammates takes care of the quantitative analysis, and you would take care of writing, okay, putting everything together and come up with the written reports. Okay, so both of you can benefit from this. Okay, the whole team can be very productive. So that's what we're talking about here between A and B. When they trade with each other, okay, it's just like you trade your writing specialty with your teammates' quantitative skills. Okay. What's more interesting is the second scenario here. Now, everything else stays the same except for this one here. We would say country B spends 10 minutes producing each pencil. Now, in this case, you would find that, country B is productive or efficient in the production of both goods. Okay, so it can produce the iPads with a fewer amount of time, and pencil production, it's the same, right? It spends 5 less minutes than country A does producing each pencil. So in this case, again, you can pause the video and think about, should the two countries trade with each other? Okay, or more specifically, could country B still benefit from the trade with country A? Some of you may say that, well, they don't need to trade, especially from the country B's perspective, right? Because it's more efficient, more productive in both. So country B should produce both. Okay, if there's any trade, that's just a one-way trade. By that we mean country B produces both iPads and pencils and export them to country A, right? Is that true? Okay, this is something we're going to spend a lot of time in this chapter to check out. Okay, now again, the question we will be able to answer is, can we benefit from trade? Okay, again, as we said, in this case, country B. Okay, or you could, put yourself into the shoes of the people in country A, right? If the only thing they would do in the second scenario is to import iPads and pencils from country B, then is that really what the country A wants, right? Because they would feel like, the country A is raped by B, right? Like B made a lot of money from A. All right, so actually this is about the fifth principle in chapter 1. Trade can make everyone better off. So here we already tell you the conclusion. Okay, but later we're going to tell you, we're going to check out, how we would prove this. Okay, and the fifth principle, we didn't discuss this in chapter 1, okay, because here the whole chapter 3 is devoted to this. Okay, and we would also talk about, is this universally true, or there might be some preconditions that leads to be met.